It's official, we're going to have to wait for the new Suicide Squad game. There's something strange in the neighborhood, but it looks like we're going to be able to answer that call this year. And I've got my review of Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. All that and the latest and everything cool today in the Rundown. Hey, welcome to the Rundown. My name is Victor Lucas, and I'm so happy to see you here in the Electric Playground. We've got a great episode planned for you today, and it's brought to you by our friends and family over at the Gaming Stadium. They are Canada's leader in online esports tournament facilitation. They've got tournaments happening every single weekend that you don't want to miss out on, and you can find out all about them at tgs.gg. Now, TGS has also got a brand new platform and an initiative called Pepper, and this is about giving power to create tournaments back to players. And you can put your bragging rights on the line and put some cash on the line if you'd like. Pepper is totally free, and you can find out all about it at pepper.gg. And of course, we have a dedication for today's episode. It is Mr. Chris Kepler, who had this to say about Gran Turismo. The funny part about any supported desire about not wanting players to cheat to get the better cars faster and go and dominate with them is that they don't care about the balance as long as you swipe your credit card. Clearly, it's not really a balance issue at all. It's a money-making issue. And that was in the discussion in the last rundown about the issues that Gran Turismo 7 is facing right now. A lot of unhappy players out there that have been forced to either spend the money or grind a hell of a lot to access the supercars like that. I think that's a beautiful Ferrari that we see in the background behind Kazunori-san. I love this game when I reviewed it, as I talked about in the last rundown, but I am totally aware that there are a lot of unhappy customers out there, as I'm sure and I know that PlayStation is. They are responding. There is a bit of a dialogue going on. I know that there are a lot of players out there that have figured out how to fast track the monetization of earning credits so that they can get the better stuff. So yeah, these are interesting days because Gran Turismo is a brand that's been relatively untouchable for so long. And it has garnered a lot of anger. And so we'll see how this all pans out. But hopefully players will get the game that they want out of this title. And I got to tell you, the experience that I had with it, I thought it was just wonderful. I really enjoyed my time with Gran Turismo 7. Let's see how this all works out because I hate to see unhappy players out there. And I know that PlayStation does too. Speaking of being unhappy about a video game, we got some bad news today about the Suicide Squad. Warner Brothers and Rocksteady Games have announced that yes, indeed, the Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League is being delayed to spring 2023. And Sefton Hill, who is the founder of Rocksteady, had to take to Twitter today, and he said, "We've made a difficult decision to delay Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League to spring 2023. I know a delay is frustrating, but that time is going to make the best game that we can. I look forward to bringing the Chaos to Metropolis together. Thanks for your patience." And I don't think it's a lot to ask for us to have patience. We've already been waiting 5 years, 6 years for the next Rocksteady experience, and this game is looking absolutely phenomenal. Obviously, it's a pickup and a liftoff on all the stuff that they did with the Arkham franchise. We're going to have cooperative play with these wacky characters, and Brainiac is going to be involved, and all of the Justice League characters are going to be a part of this experience as well. And it looks like they've all been corrupted, and so our last hope are a bunch of people that have been locked up in Arkham Asylum. And of course, they have exploding neck braces and things implanted in them that will kill them if they don't comply, which will lead to some pretty interesting chaos out in the streets of Metropolis. And what I'm really curious about is how everybody kind of aligns and how the cooperative play kind of works. And basically, you're picking your class with these different characters, and whether they're all going to be balanced and as fun to play as each other, because we've all got our favorites out there. King Shark happens to be one of mine since the Suicide Squad film. But this game looks like it's going to be outrageously enjoyable and not afraid to, be a little controversial, be a little edgy, be a little dark. There's going to be heads blowing off and some pretty supremo violence that we haven't really associated. I mean, the Arkham games got pretty dark, but it wasn't the out-and-out sort of gore fest that the Suicide Squad kind of calls into play, especially after the James Gunn film. So we'll see how this all comes together, but this little teaser that we got a few months ago is just stunning. I'm really excited about this. I actually put this in my top 22 games of 2022 that I was most excited for. But we know how those lists always work out, right? Stuff definitely gets shifted around and stuff gets moved around. But you guys know what I always say. Just make it great and we'll wait. And it sounds like that's exactly what the plan is over at Rocksteady. I have faith in them. Do you guys have faith in them? Are you excited about the Suicide Squad? Or have you had enough about these anti-heroes? Because they've been in the media quite a bit over the last several years. And I have to be honest, I wasn't ever a huge fan of this cast of characters as a collective before, when I read about them in the books and stuff. But I see the joy that people have from them. And honestly, the James Gunn movie was way better and way more fun than I ever expected it to be, and that it had a right to be. It was just crazy. So not only does Rocksteady have to live up to the expectations around these characters in regards to the Arkham stuff that they've put together, but obviously also what James Gunn just put up on the big screen and to some extent on the small screen with Peacemaker. All right, let's talk about another franchise that is about to be back on the scene. Talking about Ghostbusters. IllFonic has finally dropped some footage. It looks mostly like the pre-rendered artwork that's going to be a part of the new Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed. Essentially, what we're going to be able to do here is squad up and be a part of the Ghostbusters. It's a 4 versus 1 asymmetric multiplayer experience, like this team and this company have been able to do with other massive brands like Friday the 13th and also the Predator game, the Predator Hunting Ground game, which I haven't played. I did play a little Friday the 13th, thought it was okay. And I am super excited to see how this game pans out. If we are indeed looking at gameplay, it looks pretty good. It doesn't, look state-of-the-art or mind-blowing or visuals that we haven't ever seen before, but it does look like a pretty faithful representation of what the Ghostbusters called to mind. All of the movies that they made and the animated stuff. I'm a big fan of Ghostbusters. I enjoyed myself with the last film. And I have always felt like Ghostbusters is terrific fodder for other media, whether it's in comic books or animated stuff. If there were regular releases of Ghostbusters films, we can have a lot of fun in this world. And I know that IllFonic is doing a really concerted effort to honor the source material of the work that they are allowed to play with. And this looks like it's going to be pretty damn solid. I also know that Greg Miller from Kind of Funny is going to be voicing one of the characters in this game, so I can't wait to see and hopefully play as Greg Miller in this game. But the other big thing about this title, the asymmetric part of it, is that somebody can play as the Ghost and go and create all kinds of havoc for the Ghostbusters out there. There is going to be some single-player elements in this title as well, so you don't have to always find a group of different people to play with. But it does look like a lot of fun, and I am excited to see this come together, and hopefully this is the best game that IllFonic has made, and hopefully there have been lots of really cool lessons that they've learned. I know there's a lot of happy players out there for the Predator game, and lots of people enjoyed the Friday the 13th game, and hopefully Ghostbusters levels up, and it's just a super thrilling, fun-filled experience for groups of people out there when it launches later this year. And it is coming out this year. That's what they wanted to come out there with the trailer about this. It was hinted at, and we had lots of speculation that it was coming, but IllFonic has announced that, yep, we're going to be playing that soon. So I can't wait to review that one. And speaking of reviews, I've got my review of Tiny Tina's Wonderlands right now. I have been lost in this kooky world that Tiny Tina has crafted for us with her bunkers and badasses tabletop role-playing game. It's kind of like a side game or a different track of a video game in the Borderlands experience. We saw something like this with the pre-sequel, and we've seen the downloadable content which take the core idea, the looter-shooter kind of concept of Borderlands, and twist it and turn it into something interesting and fun in a slightly different direction, and that's exactly what's happening here. I was a bit surprised to find out how much Tiny Tina's Wonderlands feels like Borderlands. I was expecting there to be a little bit more of a change-up, a little bit more emphasis on melee combat and magical combat. And there is that in the game for sure. You have magical powers and magical abilities. It starts with picking your class, and you've got a bunch of different classes that you can choose from, as any sort of tabletop role-playing experience would be. And then you head out into the field, and you can be a magic user. You can have an emphasis on projectile weapons, or sort of combining everything, which is kind of cool. So you've got the stab macer, the clawbringer. I chose to play as the clawbringer. There's the berserker, which is the melee character. I had a really fun time, but it took a while for the game to kind of find its groove, in my opinion. I basically had to put in like a good 7 hours, and then I was like, oh, okay, I kind of get this. One of the things that they've done to kind of differentiate this from the Borderlands experience is they've done this overworld map, which is, this whole experience is about poking fun, and it's a tongue-in-cheek variation on a lot of classic role-playing video games, but also tabletop role-playing games, and the chatter is consistent and not always funny, but it's always done with a tremendous amount of energy, and humor in video games is very subjective, so you may love it. But the overworld kind of gives you these sections where you can go into, and then you can get into these sort of micro battles, and you will get a new assortment of loot and maybe a key to unlock an area that you can go back into. But the core experience is very Borderlands-like. You're going to get bombarded with beasts and monsters, and you're going to upgrade your weaponry, not by augmenting the weapons that you have currently, but by tossing them or selling them and finding new weapons, because that's what this game is all about. It's a tremendous amount of time inside of menus, just like every Borderlands game out there. But the core mechanics of getting into battle and doing some magic uses like lightning attacks or other elemental attacks like fire attacks or water attacks or whatever, that's always pretty damn cool. Sometimes they can be area effects, so you'll drop sort of a dome around the bad guys and lightning strikes will happen to them as they enter into that area. I did find that it got pretty hot and heated, like there were tons and tons of enemies on screen at times, and they come at you from every direction, so sometimes you're going to be dying and not knowing exactly why you're dying because somebody got you from way off in the distance or whatever. But of course, just like Borderlands, you can win your way back out into the field, and it does end up feeling like Borderlands, and that can, I think, stretch your patience with this title, especially if you maybe didn't love Borderlands 3, which I didn't love Borderlands 3, but every time I go back and play it, I appreciate a little bit more of the hooks of the gameplay. And that's kind of what I got out of playing Tiny Tina. I started to really just enjoy the groove of it. I tuned out on a lot of the dialogue because it's just so much, and they're working so hard. Wanda Sykes is in there. Ashley Birch plays Tiny Tina, and she's terrific. What an incredible performer. I love Will Arnett. He is sort of this dragon lord, the big bad boss that you're going to eventually encounter in the game, and he does some nefarious things in there. But everybody is kind of out joking each other and being a little bit silly with what they want to contribute to everything, but it's not like joke a minute. It's everybody's trying to like out clever each other, and that works to a degree. But one of the things about humor in video games is that when you're poking fun at all of it, and it pokes fun at sort of the real world of Dungeons and Dragons and how it can be kind of loopy and crazy to make stuff up on the fly, and that's what Tiny Tina is doing. She's kind of the dungeon master. When you're making fun of all of that stuff, I say this all the time, you have to be better than all of that stuff. You have to kind of elevate, and you have to be incredible. And it's not incredible. It's really good, and it's really tuned, but it's a side story. It's a side kind of take on everything, like this crazy pig-like tooth fairy that you'll encounter along the way. I mean, I had a smile on my face until I got into the menus. The menus started to really grate on me, just like they do in a lot of the Borderlands games. That's a big part of the experience, so you have to have patience for the menus, but you're constantly picking up weapons. There's millions of them, just like there are in every one of these games. And it does start to get a little tedious going in and deciding to call some junk or sell them or drop them because you found some new things, and you're constantly looking at the stats. I get that's part of the role-playing kind of vibe of this game, but also all of the other Borderlands games. It just started to get a little tedious. I mean, there's no other way to say it. Like, I would have a full inventory because your backpack isn't that large, and I'd have to drop a bunch of weapons, and then they would be cluttered all over the ground because I wanted to pick this other thing up, but I'd have to look at everything and see their stats pop up before I picked up the right thing, because, you know, stuff is happening so quickly in this game. It's not like a turn-based experience. Everything is fast, and the enemies are all around you, and there's fireballs everywhere, and you're like, okay, well, I want to get this better axe. It's a pace breaker when you have to stop and look at all of your menus and change all of that stuff. It's a little bit better when you go into the automated stores, which are just like the other Borderlands games. There might be a little bit more steampunky in this title, but in the stores you can choose the daily deal, but you can also sell your stuff and make some more money and pick your goods a little bit better that way, and sort of do your inventory management there. I honestly, all I wish that was in this game to kind of differentiate it a little bit is just a button that automatically puts the best stuff onto your character, and maybe another button to get rid of all of the stuff below a certain level or something like that. I'm nitpicking because if you're into role-playing experiences and you know this about Borderlands, this is not going to be unfamiliar to you. You've been contending with this for a long time. I just kind of wish that, as we are in now the new generation of Borderlands, after Borderlands 3 has been repositioned as a PS5 and Xbox Series X title, right? Because they did the upgrade for that, which was cool. I feel like the game minutia should have been upgraded a little bit more too. It does differentiate itself enough with the cosmetic kind of qualities, the visuals, the super crazy colors that you get. It's like, because we're in Tiny Tina's imagination, you know, and this idea that there's this queen butt stallion who is this magical horse that looks like she's out of My Little Pony or something like that. So there's these weird incongruencies, which I really enjoy. But of course, you're going to be battling a lot of zombies and a lot of skeletons and goblins and vicious creatures, and they're going to come in, an assortment of sizes and with better weaponry and better armor that you will eventually earn and use. There is a little bit of platform hopping and jumping and navigation that way. There's some circuitous levels where you have to kind of figure out where to go back to get to the boss, and also some invisible walls, and also the random encounters, and they're poking fun of random encounters that you get into on the overworld. The whole shtick there is that you have a small area and you've just got to kill everybody to a quota, and then you unlock the goodie that you're winning out of that random battle, and then you can progress forward. But that seems, I don't know, a little superfluous, a little bit sort of added on, because the rest of the game is battles in bigger areas, and then as this interesting kind of side event, it's big battles in the small area. So there's a lot of rinse and repeat repetition. There's a lot of things that are definitely an acknowledgement and a throwback to all the Borderlands stuff that you've played before, and you'll see characters pop up that you recognize from previous Borderlands games, which is all fine. And I think that the mileage will vary on the humor and some of the creative choices with these games, and I think a big chunk of whether you're going to love this is how much you love tabletop RPGs and how much you love Borderlands. And I have loved Borderlands, but Borderlands 3 felt like a little bit like they were exhausting the formula for me, you know? It didn't feel like that much of a reinvention or a revolution. And I feel like this one does a little more because of its unique take on its aesthetics and the characters and the world that it's crafted for us. And I appreciated it. I did enjoy this game a hell of a lot. I think it's a very solid game in the Borderlands pantheon. It just didn't shake it all up and change everything and put Borderlands in a completely different perspective. But it's damn solid. It's a very, very good time. And I know that one thing that I didn't do is I didn't play it online with friends, and that's where Borderlands really, really always succeeds, when you play this cooperatively. And I think that this game will also be an awesome time when you play it with other people. And honestly, it's not a small game. It's a large game. There's a lot to see, a lot to unlock, and there's DLC planned for this thing. One other thing too is that I've been playing a lot of Soulsborne type experiences, a lot of really tough hack and slashers over the last little while, and this was a shooter, which I wasn't really expecting. I thought it was going to lean more in the traditional role-playing sort of vein, and the only projectile stuff that I was going to do were magic attacks and maybe crossbows and stuff. But nope, you're getting submachine guns and rocket launchers and all the awesome Borderlands creative weapons that they always have. Variations on those themes, but it was different than a lot of the other stuff that I've been playing recently, so I enjoyed it because of that. So I think it's a very solid game for sure. It's not my favorite of the Borderlands games, but it's a very solid experience. I think there's going to be a lot for people to enjoy, especially if they love this franchise. I'm going to give Tiny Tina's Wonderlands an 8 out of 10. All right, I've got just a couple more things to tell you guys about. It's been a big couple of days for platform upgrades. We got one for Nintendo, which allows us to finally create folders, or as Nintendo calls them, groups. And essentially what you can do is select a bunch of the games that exist on your Nintendo Switch's SD card or in the internal memory, and you can collect them together and arrange them in the order that you want them to be arranged inside of a group, and call the group or folder whatever you want. And it gives you a chance to kind of tidy up the vast assortment of titles that are on the Nintendo Switch, which is a pretty good thing. I haven't had time to do this myself because it is a little bit of organization. It's going to take a little bit of time to kind of click through all of this stuff. But good on Nintendo for finally doing this. It's crazy that it's taken this long because, of course, we could do this on the 3DS. Remember that? But we can. It would be nice if we got some new themes and some new colors and some new choices with the menu structure that we have on the Nintendo Switch. I like its clean kind of elegance for sure, but now that we're playing with folders, maybe we can have some colors. Wouldn't that be crazy? And of course, the PlayStation 5 has also gotten a recent update, and they are alluding to a lot of interesting stuff that's going to be happening in the future. We're actually going to be getting variable refresh rate down the road on PlayStation 5, which is going to be pretty cool for players that have HDMI 2.1 television sets and have the ability to have games kind of sync up with the higher refresh rates that these TVs are capable of. And so that will make games look a lot smoother. They're also building VRR technology, variable refresh rate, so that you can attach it to games that don't even have it. So there's going to be a lot of existing software that will be patched to take advantage of VRR. New games will take advantage of it as well. And if you've got the video hardware to really appreciate it, it's going to make your games look a lot smoother. They also updated the PlayStation apps for people that play PS games and on the remote app, or just for purchasing or whatever, circling through all of their friends and all of the other lists. The apps have been updated as well, and now that it's a lot easier for people to be able to connect socially through the PlayStation environment, which is pretty cool. So good on the console manufacturers to always find different ways to improve the experience of logging into these systems. Sometimes we wonder why it takes them so long, but we're glad when we get them, right? All right, you guys, that's going to do it for the rundown today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back again with a fresh episode for you very soon. Thank you to all of our followers and our subscribers on Twitch, and all of our EPN members and subscribers on YouTube. You guys are all awesome. We'll see you soon, and until then, play forever.